Hello, everybody. My name is Danielle, and I'm the MLA for Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo. And it is my absolute pleasure to be joined by Premier Danielle Smith. We have the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors, Devin Dreeshen, and the Minister of Jobs, Economy, and Northern Development, Brian Jean. And we're also blessed to be joined by Mayor Sandy Bowman of the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo, as well as the Wood Buffalo Economic Development Director, Kevin Wylick. And with that, I'd love to introduce Premier Danielle Smith.
Oh, terrific. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. And thanks very much, Tanny, for hosting this wonderful announcement. It's great to be here today with my colleagues, Devin Dreeshen, Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors, Brian Jean, Minister of Jobs, Economy, and Northern Development, and MLA for Fort McMurray, Lac La Biche, and Tanny Yao, who is MLA for Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo. And we'll be hearing from Kevin a little bit later. I'm happy to be back in Fort McMurray. Between the wilderness and the fast-growing communities and the cutting-edge industry, I am reminded of how much promise there is up here. The human and economic potential is incredible. This is the Alberta that the world should see and understand. This is the Alberta our government is working so hard to protect and to promote. And today marks another step forward for the North, leading to more good jobs, more opportunities, and more revenues from resources. Through Budget 2023, we are building up the region and its people. We're securing Alberta's future by growing the economy and supporting the energy industry. We're doing this by investing in the critical infrastructure that the North needs now, including reliable roads in tough terrain. One of those was announced just yesterday, Highway 686. And let me tell you, I have never been more aware of the inconvenience of not having a road that connects Grand Prairie to Fort McMurray as I was trying to come here yesterday. I really had to take that, and those who've driven it know that you have to take a circuitous route. Had to go down through High Prairie, Slave Lake, onto Athabasca, and on up. I think it took me 8 hours in total, and there was a lot of deer that we had to avoid in the ditch as well. But this is the reason why we needed to be able to make a commitment on that announcement. It doesn't just make sense given how much our northern communities are growing, so I'm thrilled about the work that Minister Dreeshen has done with Highway 686 when he signed an agreement with three First Nations to work together on a plan to extend Highway 686 by 218 kilometers. The proposed new east-west link will connect Peerless Lake with Fort McMurray. It'll speed up travel, create more opportunities for Indigenous peoples, and offer quicker access to goods and services in other communities. And then we'll need to talk to our Minister of Technology and Innovation, Nate Glubish, about how we're going to improve cell phone connectivity while you're driving on that roundabout road too. I think there's about a 2-hour stretch there where you get no cell phone coverage. But let's get back to where we are today. Alberta's oil sands depends on vast networks of business, labor, and machinery to keep the energy flowing and the economy humming. So we're putting more dollars into transportation to ensure everyone and everything can move safely in all kinds of weather. And I don't need to tell you about the importance of Highway 63. For the many workers in our oil and gas industry, that's the road that brings them up from all over the province to long day shifts and long night shifts. And it's their work that allows the rest of us to fuel our cars so that we can bring our kids to school or soccer practice, or with summer drawing closer, going on a road trip. In 2012, 11 years ago, work began to twin a long stretch of Highway 63 to make it safer for families and commercial drivers driving north and south. Today, I'm delighted to announce that we are continuing that work. Through Budget 2023, our government is investing $117 million to fund the twinning of an 11.5-kilometer stretch of Highway 63 north of Fort McMurray. This is the only major highway into the oil sands, and it's one of the most important economic corridors in the entire province, maybe even in the entire country. More than 11,000 vehicles use this section of the highway every day, and many of them are large trucks carrying oversized and overweight cargo for energy companies. Enhancing Highway 63's capacity will let those heavy loads travel more safely without causing as many disruptions to local traffic. And it will shorten commute times between Fort McMurray and the mines in the north. Our investment adds up to a big quality of life improvement for thousands of residents, workers, and contractors, and it also adds a major boost to Alberta's economy. It's a vote of confidence in the future of the oil sands and our energy industry. Industry will have room to grow because while Justin Trudeau and his allies may be interested in stifling growth of our industries, we are not. We know of the hard work that is being done in Alberta's north and that it's critically important, not just for Alberta's economy, but for Canada's. And not only that, the rest of the world is increasingly aware that it will need hydrocarbons for decades to come, and that relying on dictators is not even remotely reasonable or justifiable, not when there are more trustworthy suppliers. Alberta has tremendous energy riches, and the goal of producing them to the most sustainable standards, all the way down to carbon neutrality. We're ensuring that the infrastructure is in place so producers can meet Alberta's high demand for oil, or the world's high demand for Alberta's oil and gas, because the world needs more Alberta energy. Twinning more of Highway 63 is one more way we are supporting the economic growth of the region, our province, and of our country. And as much as we focus on economic growth, we do so hand in hand with safety. Drivers will spend less time bumper to bumper, and they'll be able to share the road better with huge equipment. Our government is investing throughout the province, including Northern Alberta. Piece by piece, Northern Alberta is getting the attention it deserves and the infrastructure it needs to better provide a quality of life that everybody who lives here deserves. And there is so much more to come. Thank you. I'd like to now invite Transportation and Economic Corridors Minister Devin Dreeshen up to share more details on Highway 63.
Well, it's great to be here, obviously with Premier Danielle Smith, as well as my friends up in Fort McMurray, Minister Jean and Tanny Yao. Just great colleagues that obviously advocate for their local constituency, but up here in the north and in the Fort McMurray region, it's obviously a special region. It's truly the economic engine of not just Alberta and Canada, and that's why in Budget 23, as the Premier mentioned, this $117 million investment into Highway 63 is so important, and it's going to be nearly a 12-kilometer stretch from Mildred Lake to the Athabasca River. And the Department of Transportation and Economic Corridor, it looks at traffic counts when it comes to twinning highways. And in this area, it's about almost 12,000 vehicles at the south end and almost 7,000 vehicles at the north end of this section, and sprinkle in with heavy truck traffic as well. This was a very much needed twinning project here in Fort McMurray. But we also look at other twinning projects around the province that may not have that 10,000 car per day traffic count. But when you look at the economic activity, whether it's truck traffic, we look at safety in general. So we have been twinning Highway 3, Highway 11 in central Alberta, Highway 3 in southern Alberta, and then obviously 63 here today. So we want to make sure that Albertans can get home safe after they're on their way home from work, and that's why this announcement is so important for the region here in northern Alberta. And when it comes to economic corridors, a couple of weeks ago we signed a memorandum of understanding with Saskatchewan and Manitoba that the three prairie provinces working together on an economic corridor, linking market roads across the three provinces, as well as looking at a corridor where we can have, whether it's utility lines, pipelines, railways, roadways, that can connect and actually have nation-building projects here in Canada, and it not being a laughing matter. That we can get projects done in our country. So just really exciting times for Alberta, and especially here in northern Alberta. And right now I'd like to hand things over to Kevin Weidlich, the President and CEO of the Fort McMurray and Wood Buffalo Economic Development and Tourism Association.
Thank you, Premier and Ministers, for supporting Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo with these incredibly important transportation infrastructure announcements. As it was mentioned earlier, Highway 63 will definitely improve quality of life for the residents of Fort McMurray, and especially for the oil sands workers. But it will also do more than that. It improves the quality of life for all residents within the region. And I'm thinking specifically of the residents of Fort Chipewyan. In the wintertime, when the winter road is open, the twinning of this highway will reduce commute times and increase safety for the residents of Fort Chip when they come to Fort McMurray, and for Fort McMurray residents to go to Fort Chip. So it increases economic activity all the way through the north through this simple investment. And I also would like to pay and acknowledge the Highway 686 announcement that was just made yesterday, which further increases the economic activity and quality of life for the residents of Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo. These two major transportation infrastructure investments really demonstrate that Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo's economy is incredibly important to the province and the country, and that the province is genuinely committed. So I want to say again, thank you to the Premier and to the ministers for being here, and also thank you to the local MLAs, Danielle for Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo, and Minister Brian Jean, who's also the MLA for Fort McMurray Lac La Biche, for your tireless advocacy for our region. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Listen, folks, this is a great announcement for us here in Fort McMurray. This is a great announcement for us in Northern Alberta and a great announcement for Canada. The increased quality of life for people, the great economic boon, it just shows that this government is a government that is smart and that is caring for the people of Alberta. Thank you so much to the Premier and the government for this announcement.
And thanks again to Minister Jean and Danielle for their advocacy for their communities. So I guess we'll go to questions.
Yeah, perfect. We do have a mic here if anyone in person wants to go first. Just please state your name and outlet, and we'll take one question from each journalist.
Hi there, my name is Alex McLeod. I'm from Mix 103 up here, and I was just curious with the election coming up, how are you going to prioritize Fort McMurray and especially the oil sands and our energy sector up here?
Well, part of the reason why we're making these announcements is that we had the budget allocation in Budget 2023, and we wanted to make sure that people know that Northern Alberta and Northern development is an absolute priority for our government. We are going to build out the highway that will connect Peerless Lake to Fort McMurray, which will connect our two big energy centers in Northern Alberta, Grand Prairie with Fort McMurray. And then with this, it also does this, with this announcement today of the twinning north of 63, it'll just enable more expansion of the oil sands. I know that there are a lot of people talking down our industry, and we're talking it up. We know that in a world of energy security needs, that these are the kind of investments we need to make. We can provide energy security, energy affordability, and also make sure that we're reducing emissions. And so that's why these two major announcements today. It's our commitment that we believe in this region.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and now we'll go to the phone line. So, moderator, could you please put through the first caller?
Dave Kaiser, Global News. Good afternoon. No, sorry, it's still technically morning. Good morning. My question for Danielle Smith. Ms. Smith, you know, we're in an election here, what will be in a couple of days, and we've got two strong female leaders, one from each side. But when we look at candidates from each party, we're seeing significantly fewer UCP female candidates than NDP ones. I believe the NDP have some relative gender parity happening there, whereas in the UCP, I think less than a quarter of your candidates are female. Why do you think that is?
When I look at the diversity of our candidates, I'm so excited. We've got half of our candidates are either from a minority community or women, and I think being able to have that broad perspective is going to be really valuable when we go into the general election campaign. It'll give us great perspective, and so I'm pretty proud of the roster we've put forward.
Thanks, Safe. Operator, could you put through the next caller, please?
Jessica Robb, CTV.
Thanks for taking my question. My question is for Premier Smith as well. The Alberta Medical Association put out a letter raising concerns about the 20 unfilled family medicine residency positions in the province, saying it's a huge signal that more action is needed. I guess, what is your reaction to this, and what is the province's plan to help address this?
Yeah, they're right. More action is needed, and that's the reason why we've taken action. We have $2 billion that we are investing in primary care. We've expanded out our residency spaces. We're expanding out our spaces to train more medical doctors. We're reducing the barriers across the country to be able to attract more doctors from the rest of the country, and we're also working on international recruitment and foreign credentials recognition. This is a global problem of attracting workers or attracting doctors into primary care. So we are going to be also having dedicated spaces to do that kind of recruitment. The other aspect that we're working on is how we can do joint practice when we look at some of the successful models for PCNs, for instance, having a doctor lead it with nurse practitioners, LPNs, dietitians, and other allied health professionals, that is the agreement that we signed with the Alberta Medical Association, is to work towards more of those joint practices. We're just getting started. We know it's a big problem, and we do have more work to do.
All right, perfect. That's everyone we had in the queue. So thank you everyone for coming out today.
Thank you.